Hey, Radiant Mama. Before we dive into today's episode, I have something extra special to share with you. If you're a mompreneur who is craving connection, support, and real opportunities to grow your business, this is for you. I want to personally invite you to the Mama Means Business Networking and Mastermind event, a monthly virtual gathering designed to bring ambitious, passionate, purpose driven moms together. This isn't just another Zoom call. This is where community meets opportunity. Imagine being surrounded by women who get what it's like to juggle motherhood and entrepreneurship, who see your vision and who are there to cheer you on, share resources, and help you shine. You'll walk away from each event with fresh inspiration, new genuine connections, a chance to promote your business, expert insight, and coaching moments, all in a safe space where you're seen, supported, and celebrated. This is how we rise and thrive together. Spots are limited to keep things intentional and impactful. So grab yours now at the link in the show notes. It's only $5 to reserve your seat, and it could be the best $5 you've spent on your business and yourself. Better yet, invite a fellow mompreneur to join you and double the magic because, Mama, you were never meant to do this alone. Now, let's get into the episode.
I go back and I try to get more stories and nobody's telling me much, right? No one can talk about the past because her death was just so tragic and she was such a pillar in our lives that it's actually very shameful. Like all of this felt so shameful. But I started getting little pieces. I was like, okay. And I fold it into my second solo show, which I get a director for. And then the third one is about our body image stuff that we share collectively. And then eventually it turned into this 65-minute show where I play 15 characters in 65 minutes.
Welcome to Radiant Mom Rising. Get ready to be inspired, empowered, and uplifted. I'm your host, Mary Dibble, and in each episode, we dive into amazing stories, insights, and conversations that help moms like you chase your dreams and embrace your worth. Let's rise and shine together.
Welcome back to Radiant Mom Rising. I'm your host, Mary Dibble. Today's episode is one that will move you to your core. Have you ever carried a story that you weren't allowed to tell? A pain passed down silently from one generation to the next? Today, I'm joined with the incredible Susan Lieu, performer, playwright, and author, whose life was forever changed by the tragic hush-hush death of her mother due to cosmetic surgery. But instead of staying silent, Susan made a radical choice to dig deep into her family's history, confront the truth, and transform grief into art. She created a one-woman show, wrote a powerful memoir, and now travels the country sharing her story, inviting others to confront trauma, heal culture wounds, and finally speak what's been left unsaid. You don't want to miss this. It's a story of resilience, truth, and the kind of fierce courage I know many of you have burning inside. Let's dive in.
Welcome back to the show. I'm here with Susan today. I am excited to have her. Thank you for joining me on the show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. And as we were talking earlier, you got to count your blessings when you got them. And so actually, I'm doing great.
I'm so excited for you. I know you've been going through a lot, and I look forward. I've read a little bit of your book, and I'm excited to hear more of your story. So let's start off by you introducing yourself to the listeners and tell us a little bit about what you do.
Yeah. So my name is Susan Lieu. I'm a Vietnamese-American performer, playwright, and author, and accidental artist. Like completely accidental, because I did the very thing I was not allowed to do, which is talk about my family's story. And it was when I kind of came to a head when I was getting married and my dad and aunts were pressuring me to have kids. I took a step back and said, how can I become a mother if I never knew my own? And the story all unfortunately starts when I'm 11 years old. My mom's 38. She goes in for plastic surgery. She thinks she's going to come home with her beautiful new body the next day. And she loses oxygen to her brain. And she's in a coma for 5 days. So she had gone in for a tummy tuck, the narrowing of her nostrils, and a chin implant. And what she didn't realize is her plastic surgeon was very negligent, on probation, 19 lawsuits against him, didn't have medical malpractice insurance, No, this was not Vietnam. This was San Francisco in 1996. And she loses her life, and she's 38, and she has 4 kids and 2 nail salons, and she's the pillar of our family. And for the next 2 decades, my family has never spoken about her or what happened ever again. So when my dad and aunts are like, have kids, have kids, have kids, I'm sitting there going like, God, like if something goes wrong, who am I going to call? Like I don't have a model for a mother. And so it all kind of came crashing to a head, where it was something that I had to ignore and be silent about for my whole life. And then finally I was like, I need to know the truth. But if my family wouldn't talk, what did I do? I chased down the plastic surgeon and his kids. I enlisted the help of spirit channelers. I went back to Vietnam several times. And every time I learned something new, I put it on stage in a one-woman show, which eventually becomes this book.
I love this right here. People sharing their stories and really making an impact. And what a journey you apparently have been on. So I'd love to dig more into that. Tell us about that experience of having to go find this surgeon who you find all these things about that led to your mom's death. And your story also hits home. I'm about to be 38 this year. So like, and I have toddlers and I have a 16-year-old too. So I'm like, oh, that breaks my heart to imagine, you're going in for this procedure. And it's supposed to help you, make you feel better about yourself, even though I'm sure she probably didn't even need it.
She didn't.
Yeah, yeah, and that's a whole nother topic right there when it comes to the insecurities and the expectations we put on ourselves, right? As of how we should look, even though
Oh,
we're just so
yeah.
beautiful just the way we are. But I'd love to hear a little bit more about that experience and what that was like.
Oh, which part about
Oh, sorry, about
putting it
finding,
on
yeah,
stage or, or
no,
or tracking
finding
down
him.
information?
Yes, cracking down info
Yeah.
like a little
Oh my God.
detective.
Oh my God. So I was in business school and my professors were like, you can do what you want in life. Yeah. And I'm sitting there going like, okay, so my parents were Vietnamese refugees. They were boat people. They came over to California in the 80s. My parents didn't know English. We had nail salons, like, and somehow I got into Harvard because I watched Legally Blonde and got inspired, and then eventually go to Yale to go get my MBA. And so I'm sitting here just thinking back to 11-year-old Susan and the fact that we couldn't actually sue the doctor because he didn't have medical malpractice insurance. And I was sitting thinking, like, I couldn't help my father then. But now I am so privileged with 2 Ivy League degrees. Like, I think and speak in English. Like, this is my native language. Like, this is my time to avenge my mother's death. Like, this is my time to finally help my dad. Like, he had a nail salon. It kind of failed. Like, he doesn't have a retirement. His retirements are his kids, right? Like, and that's very traditional in Vietnamese culture. But at the same time, the sheer financial devastation my family experienced because our breadwinner, our mother, passed away was huge. And so I thought, oh, this is great. I'll just go avenge my mom's death by tracking him down. I innocently call my father and I was like, oh, what was the name of the doctor? We had tried to sue him. What was the law firm? And he loses it. He's like, I don't remember. What are you talking about? I'm like, bah, like this is gonna help you. It's gonna, it's gonna be great. And he was just like, shut it down. Shut it down right now. And I was like, I know where all your important papers are. They're in this like accordion folder in your master closet. Like, I know, just go open it. And he was like, no, click. So it's kind of like, it's what I talk about in the book is like, I only have 7 memories of my mother. I was 11 when she passed away, and I have 3 older siblings. And even now to this day, I ask them for memories with her or anything else. And they were like, we don't have any. There are none. Everything you have is what there is. To this day, guys. To this day. So it's kind of like we have decades of unresolved grief around my mother. And for me to want to unpack this all and seek revenge and like get money for my dad, like maybe there's a class action lawsuit possible. There were so many other women that he hurt. And also later on, I found out that he targeted Vietnamese refugees in his advertising. So I was like, come on, like, isn't there something else here? And so it's such an innocent question to ask, who was my mom's doctor? Right? It's such an innocent question. And even now, like I remember when I was researching for the book, I asked my dad, like, hey, why did my mom choose the English name Jennifer? Shut down. Like, it's like I didn't even realize the extent of the emotional landmines. But when you talk to a rational person, you're like, so wait, your family to this day, now 3 decades later, has not talked about your mom? Like, what's that about? But I grew up within this ocean of breathing in the fact that like we just don't talk about her. This was very normal. When really it's like no one had the tools to grieve, no one had the time to grieve. And my father and my aunts had so much PTSD from the Vietnam War. It's just like you got to just move forward. Like dwelling, like what's dwelling gonna get you?
Yeah.
But at the same time, like when you completely avoid the thing, that's called denial, guys. And that you're gonna have to pay that tax somewhere else, right? So my family wouldn't give me any answers. I tracked down the surgeon. I know he's still alive. He's still practicing in the East Bay in California. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm just gonna do a multi-pronged marketing campaign. I'm gonna buy a billboard by his clinic where he would take the exit, and let him know I'm gonna watch him. I now know how to work with journalists and create stories. I'm like, okay, let me get an expose on him. And then also I saw it on a Reddit thread like you can personalize Facebook ads to one person and can really creep them out. I'm like, I'm gonna do that too. Like I was just like, I'm so smart. I know what to do to creep you out. At the
Well,
same time, second year business school, I'm trying to find a job, trying to figure out if my boyfriend is gonna be like fiance material. Like, should I move to Seattle where I know no one, where he got a job? Like I'm trying to suss this all out. And then I'm like, okay, let me just graduate, get my life in order, and then continue this quest when I settle down. It's fall of 2014. I'm in Seattle. I'm talking to my lawyer friend who went to Harvard Law School. And I was like, what can we do? And she was like, girlfriend, he's dead. And I was like, wait, no, what? No, what? No, what? And she was like, he just died last month. He just died last month from Parkinson's, And so it was kind of like when I was in school, I should have done the thing because now he dead. How do you have an enemy if they're dead, right? And I was like, but can you sue dead people? And she's like, no. So that kind of like really, I hit a wall and my husband, my then boyfriend was like, maybe you should stop, because I can't talk to my family about this. I'm only talking to him about it. I'm like, damn, like I was totally crushed. And I said in the book, then I did what anyone wants to do when they want to get distracted. I got married. So I go get married, and it's kind of crazy because I feel like my mom showed up to my wedding and crashed it because there's a point where, okay, well, one, there was huge fires at the location of where a wedding's supposed to be. So 10 days before the wedding happened, they were like, oh, we have to evacuate the town. Hashtag your wedding is canceled.
no
So
way.
we had 10 days notice to replan the wedding in Seattle. And then I'm like, okay, everything's fine. Everything's fine. So that was weird. And then like the day of my dad and stepmom is doing a tea ceremony with me and my husband. And then it's like clear blue skies and all of a sudden it starts pouring rain. And so we have to like run inside with all the stuff. And I was like, that's weird. Right? Because maybe my mom's pissed at someone sitting there, not her. And then during dinner, my bridesmaid's like, I think you need to go talk to your aunt because I think she's possessed with your mom's dead spirit. And I was like, what? So my aunt is now spirit channeling my mom. My new Korean in-laws are like, WTF. My white business school friends are like, WTF. And I'm sitting there being like, glad you showed up. Little late.
Oh.
And so it was kind of this like weird, very spiritual moment where I was like, maybe my mom wants me to keep going. So I look up depositions that the lawyer should have thrown away 13 years prior, and they didn't, and they kept it and gave me a link. And I started reading thousands of pages to understand the perspectives of my family, of what they wouldn't tell me in person, of the doctor and his history and what happened on that day. And I start piecing it together. And then I'm like, yes, I'm learning the truth. Concurrently, as a mompreneur, like as thinking about becoming a mom, I think the scariest thing about becoming a mom is wondering if you're going to be a good mom. And for me, I was kind of like, how can I be a good mom if I'm a coward? Like I labeled myself as a coward because I had done stand-up comedy 10 years, was it 10 years prior at this point? About 10 years prior. Was doing great. I headlined the Purple Onion. I was at Caroline's on Broadway. Like things were happening for me. And then I got heckled at a charity comedy show. And I was like whispering my jokes on stage. My siblings in the audience like didn't even make fun of me that night. They just bought me a drink. Like it was bad news bears.
Which
And
is
so I
something that happens to all comedians, by the way, though, and it's
it
totally part of the process.
it's awful. But the
But
point is like, I felt like in my orbit on stage and then I kind of gave it all up. And so I was like, I need to face that because how can I tell my kid be what you want in life if I did it myself? I knew I would be a tiger mom. I knew I would project onto them because I grew up poor. My kid's not going to grow up poor. You're going to get to go to drama camp if you want to, and you don't have to forge a scholarship form like I did. You know what I mean? Like you're going to get all these things, and then if I don't see you excel in them, I'm going to be resentful because I didn't get it myself. You know what I mean? Like I just saw it so clearly that my baggage was in the way of motherhood that I was like, okay, cool. I just need to deal with this like performance urge. So concurrently with learning about the doctor, I was like, okay, let me just put this truth on stage. And the first one was 25 minutes long. It was very centered around the doctor, very angry. I played 8 characters on stage. I walk off stage after the 25-minute show, and my friend was like, that was really raw theater, but I'm left with a question, which is, who is your mom? Because the only scene I have of her on stage is little kid Susan holding mom's hand who's in a coma and begging for her to come back. And I told my friend, I said, gosh, I wish I knew. I wish I knew who she was. So then my grandfather's having a 99th birthday in Vietnam. He was like, why don't you, my aunts were like, you should come because he gonna die soon. I was like, okay. So I go back and I try to get more stories and nobody's telling me much, right? No one can talk about the past because her death was just so tragic. And she was such a pillar in our lives that it's actually very shameful. Like all of this felt so shameful. But I started getting little pieces. I was like, okay. And I fold it into my second solo show, which I get a director for. And then the third one is about our body image stuff that we share collectively. And then eventually it turned into this 65-minute show where I play 15 characters in 65 minutes.
that is very awesome. That's so neat to play these different characters within a show. And the fact that you've adjusted it the way you have and grown it is quite impressive. I would love to tell us a little bit about like where, people were interested. Do you have those recorded? Is it something you just do
Yeah.
lives? Yeah, like where can they go
Oh,
find
girl,
that?
I don't do
I
it
know.
live anymore. I'm a mom.
I know, right,
I'm too
right.
tired to do it. I mean, it's a
That's
lot
okay.
of
Yeah.
work. I
Mm-hmm.
eventually put up the show as a 10 city national tour
Yeah.
when I found out I was pregnant because I was like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm a procrastinator, so I needed a constraint. And they were like, your second trimester, you're gonna feel the best. And I'm like, okay, that's when the tour is. I'm gonna start signing some contracts now. But I was so afraid. I was so afraid no one's gonna come. I was afraid that I was gonna lose money. And my venture capitalist friend was like, it's called investment, which is such a funny way to think about it, because I'm the children of immigrants. And I was like, if I'm not going to make money in the short term, this is crazy. Right. And what I also didn't tell you is in between my third and fourth show, I get fired from my management consulting job.
Oh,
So I was kind of like doing this on the side.
yeah.
And then so universe kind of gave me this moment where it was like, do you apply for the job to maximize income? Because we had just bought a house,
Oh,
which I was like very hesitant to do. And I still had a lot of graduate school loans. Or do you do the calling? And so it was actually really tense in my marriage because he was kind of like, you love to be busy. Like, why don't you just do this on the side? And I was just like, there was something that unlocked for me in my brain after the third show where I was like, people are coming up to me afterwards and sharing about their trauma. People are telling me about their dysfunctional families. There's something really intense happening that I'm doing on stage, but then allows them to also transform.
yeah.
What is this? And so we were MBA nerds about it. And he was like, okay, well, let's time boxes. We're going to give this a year. Let's figure out how much money you need to make to pay all your loans, pay your cell phone bill, to pay all of this. And also, like, you know, by the end of the year, if you don't hit that goal, you're going back to corporate America. And I was like, okay, I can deal with that. Because the thing is, what I could not deal with is being holding a grudge and being resentful.
Yeah.
Like if I hadn't, if he was like, you can't do this, no, then I'd be either like, okay, let's either get divorced. But if I continue to live with this reality where I always feel like I can blame someone for my unhappiness, I think that's very unhealthy for a relationship.
It truly is. I mean, that's part of being supportive, and it's so important to have in any relationship you have. But yeah, definitely because you don't, I mean, even for yourself too, you don't want to live with those regrets that you didn't try,
Right.
you know, when you
But
feel
also
constantly
like money is real.
real.
Like money is like a
Yes,
real
it
need, right?
exactly.
So
How do you fight against that whole reality or being
yeah.
realistic of like what you're seeing compared to
Right.
what you're taking a chance on? And this is a big
Right.
part of what I try to inspire moms and people with because everyone's journey is different.
Yeah.
And I really do think it boils down to our beliefs as well. When you don't really believe in yourself and you're not capable, that shows, you know, and so that's a very important aspect to even just hearing your story. But this is why I love hearing stories like this because I am curious. Keep going because I want to know, like, what did you decide? How did things unfold for
Yeah,
you?
yeah,
Mhm.
totally.
Yeah.
Because again, mama don't have an MFA, mama have an MBA. This all makes no sense. Makes no sense to try to go make money to only go lose money. Okay, anyways, so he was like, I was like, okay, so I we figured out what the number was of what I need to make for the year. And then I was like, okay, I'm gonna start a nonprofit consulting arm. I'm just I had some people that I used to like work for like in between jobs and stuff, and I was like, hey, can I get a couple of contract jobs? And so I had two clients, and I set some expectations like, okay, like I'm gonna work for you. I'm gonna do all these things I don't know how to do. I'm gonna do it from you anyways. And then when the show is about to happen, I'm gonna taper off, and then we'll see where we land. So then I started getting them as clients, and I was like, how am I going to hit this number? And I was like, oh, I'm going to get like corporate sponsorship for my shows. I'm going to do these crowdsourcing campaigns so that I can subsidize tickets for low income neighborhood for communities instead of just like eating out of my profits, right? Because I have to build a team of designers and directors, and I have to pay everyone money. I pay for this theater, pay for all these things. Like, how is this actually going to work? So I just hustled mad hard and I sold out the run. It was like a 2 weekend run. So it was like maybe 9 performances and sold it out. And it was crazy because I was like having client work and doing the show nonstop. And also, like, let's also mention I'm trying to excavate the past and write a compelling script and show about stuff that is totally secret that I don't actually have a total grasp on what happened and make it funny.
Right?
And then I did it. I did it.
Gosh. We're so capable, aren't we? When you hear all that, you're just like, oh my goodness, how could that ever be possible? Like, how do you even start, you know, and keep going? But that is just evidence right there of just how possible it is if you just set yourself out and not even worry too much about exactly like all the details of the how, especially in the beginning when you're just planning it. Because I think that overwhelms people. It's like, well, how am I going to do this? Just really just take one action at a time and just get things done, right? Things just tend to unfold. Would you speak to that a little bit as far as you are doing all these things right now, like in this moment, and you have no idea how you're going to come up with all this money or how you're going to do all that? What would you say would be a way you processed and just started taking action and figuring it out as far as building that team and getting things organized for this event that you did?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's so simple in a way, which is just like tell everyone you know what you're doing and be like and kind of see if you could ask for help, like some friends would be like, "Oh, that's so cool." And I'd be like, "Cool. So, do you want to buy a block of 10 tickets so you have prioritized seating in the theater? It's centered seating, but it's not discounted." And they were like, "Okay." I was like, "Yeah, because can you just buy the block so then I can start saying online, oh, we're 10% sold, 20% sold, like, and then they'd be like, okay, and I gotta say, writing newsletters, fundraising, asking people for help, still terrifying. still completely terrifying. And I do it in a way where I'm like so anxious about it and I do it kind of last minute because I'm so terrified of the rejection and failure. So I need to be clear that the fear is there. And I once saw someone's tattoo on their arm, which was feel the fear and do it anyways.
Hey, Mama. I know what it's like to feel like you're just going through the motions, showing up for everyone else, but wondering, what about me? You have dreams, you have a purpose, and I truly believe you're meant for more than just surviving the day. That's why I'm offering something really special, a free Radiant Mom breakthrough session with me. This is just a heart-centered conversation where we get to the root of what's been keeping you stuck and help you find real clarity on your next steps. And if by the end of our time together, we both feel like I can support you further on this journey, we can talk about that, but no pressure, no expectations. My goal is for you to walk away with a renewed sense of direction and confidence to take action now. So, if you're ready to shift things in your life, go grab your free session using the calendar link in the show notes before spots fill up. I'd love to connect with you. All right, now let's get back to the show. Love that.
Because fear is actually really mental and it's based on like our own ego baggage that we have, right?
Yeah.
And I have to say, like, man, those moments of asking for help, ooh, I would send out these emails, hit send, and run out of my office as if like something would explode back into the computer. But like that is still real for me. And my friends are always like, even now? I'm like, even now, guys. Like there's this innate, like, is anyone gonna ask me to be on the kickball team feeling, where you're like, you're wondering, like, do you belong? Are you worthy? And those are still very real things that I work through. So first tip number one is just like put it out there. Put it out there. Like you got some followers on LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram, like be you and say this is what you're doing, why it's important to you and what you want. And I gotta say, with all my crowdfunding campaigns or my book pre-sales or my shows around the country, it's always really interesting who shows up. It is always really interesting who shows up. Because I got some people I had not talked to in 20 years. Boom, right there. And been like, I've been cheering you the whole time. I'm like, you've been lurking online. You do not comment, but thank you for cheering me on. Like it's just interesting who comes out of the woodwork. It's interesting who gets triggered by
Yeah.
your work and has a reaction. Now, the reaction of my father, very normal, which was don't tour in my town if you still want a relationship with me. And also like, we're not going to talk about this. Also, why are you so lazy? Also, why don't you become a loan officer? Okay. So we're gonna, but that was all very expected, right? Like we've never talked about my mom. So of course he doesn't want me to talk about my mom in his town. Like I get that. But it's actually the more interesting ones where like, like medium to good friends where you're like, oh, I guess I pissed you off. Like, oh, I get, do you want to unpack that with me or not? Or you just want to ghost? Okay.
Yeah.
So I mean, there is something very interesting that happens when it is time for you to bloom, right? It is actually less painful now for you to bloom than it is for you to hold it all inside, right? That's like a really amazing quote that I really love, which is there is just the time when it is time, right? It is like giving birth. It's time. You can't reverse the time. You can't delay the time. It is time. And so when your big moment for growth is going to happen, the question is who's going to hold it there? Who's going to support and love you through it and be excited for you genuinely?
Yeah.
Or who going to be a little envious? Or who's going to say some really nasty things and it going to get back to you and they still going to be fake, right? Like humans are very interesting because we're actually just mirrors to each other. And so it's kind of funny, like in hindsight, because at the time I took all of this very personally, slash, I'm trying to put on this huge production. And there's all this stuff that I'm starting to see spill over in humans. And then I'm like, okay, what's mine to own? What's mine to own? What can we check in about? What can we process? And then also, what do I have to walk away from and be like, that's a distraction. That is toxic. I got to go do my own thing. If you want to be with me on this journey, hold my hand. Amazing. I'm here to support you. But if I'm triggering for you and you want to pull me down,
Yeah.
can we do that in like 2 months from now? Because I don't have time for that.
Or how
Like
about never? Yeah.
how but and that was like a huge growth moment. And that was before I was actually pregnant. And then especially after becoming a mom, you're like, oh my God. My
Yeah.
time is so limited, called daycare window or preschool or K-5 or whatever. You've got a very limited amount of time. And then besides taking care of chores and your health and all that, how much time do you have? And then how are you supposed to give information out for free, which is really giving away your expertise for free, and do all these other things, and then also make money and build your brand and be a LinkedIn top voice and all of those, it's just like, it's so much. And so your energy is so precious and limited. So the question is, who are you going to expose that to? Because we're always absorbing each other, right?
Yeah.
And so that was kind of like the really sad and disappointing part of seeing people's true colors about certain things, right? But then also really refreshing, where I'm like, that is a ride or die friend. Yes, they
Yeah.
are a ride or die friend, and
Yeah.
and that's also beautiful too.
Yeah.
When you say, hey friends, I got this dream. Anyone want to answer the calling? Then you get to deepen these friendships with these other people that are revealing to you that 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 they are there to support you. And
Yeah.
that's also really refreshing and exciting too. So as much there is a yin to that yang of toxic folks, there's also your ride or die that also come through, and you're like, I didn't even know you were my ride or die. And that's really exciting too, right? How do we love each other in our middle age, right? When there's so much limited time. And
Yeah.
so that was actually a really beautiful experience too that I don't want to discount.
I love that. And you're right. And for some of us, like for me, I've had strangers support me, like end up becoming my ride or die. We met through programs that I joined, and then we became like this, became accountability partners, and they've been some of the most supportive people on my journey. And then I have family who were triggered and made it very clear they're not going to support me on my journey of what I'm doing. So as hard as it is, that's the most amazing perspective and focus I think that we should all have, is attracting the right people for us, getting connected to like-minded people who will support you. And I think the more we put ourselves out there, the more we allow ourselves to be open to that and not be defeated by those who, like you say, show that opposite, like they're not going to be supportive. You will attract the right people who are going to uplift you, love you, be there for you, and actually show up for you in the way you would also show up for them, because that is a big part of keeping you going, keeping you motivated.
Right. But so it's an interesting thing to let go and to shed and to say, hey, there's friendships, different seasons, different reasons.
Yeah.
And to let that go and not mean that there's anything less about you. It actually just creates space for different people
Hmm.
and different reasons, right? And I think that especially during the pandemic, when I was writing this book and shedding some friendships, that was really painful for me because I took it so personally, and I've analyzed it 1,000 times around the sun.
Yeah.
And now I'm just looking at it and being like, well, actually, maybe they did me a favor.
Yeah. It's funny you say that, because I've been realizing that for myself, that, okay, God, I think you knew this person shouldn't be in my life because they would be toxic. They probably would have talked me out of going after my business. They would have been discouraging. They would have put in negativity, as I'm already dealing with enough of it of my own. So sometimes that is a blessing in disguise right there, as far as seeing, like you say, take your blessings where you can get it. Sometimes it's good to have that distance from people who are not really right and aligned with where you're going. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I feel you on that. And it sounds like you have done incredible things, and you sharing your mom's story, I mean, is so beautiful and so powerful. And I hate that you had such a struggle to get answers that people could have simplified it, but it almost is cool to see that you still went on this awesome journey of putting pieces together. And I have to ask you, how old were you when you started that journey of finding answers about your mom? Because you said you were in college.
I was in grad school.
Oh.
So at least 30, at
Oh,
least
okay.
30. Yeah,
Okay.
because
And
remember, not allowed to talk about this at all.
for
And
so,
anytime I would ever ask my family about her, they'd be like,
yeah,
"You're so emotional. You're living in the past." And I'm like, at that point, I was like, I'm 12. Like mom just died last year.
yeah,
Right. And so it's
it's
kind of
huge.
like the context of family expectation, like hide it under the rug, like
Mm.
save face, that I was living by those rules for a long time because that is what I was supposed to do.
Yes, that
But it wasn't in,
generational
yeah, but it wasn't until I
conditioning.
hit in my 30s. I'm like, I'm a grown ass woman. Like,
Yeah, screw this.
come on, I gotta live life for me. I gotta
Yes.
live life for me because, and I write this in the book, like if we don't, the first line of the book is, everyone knows the tragedy of the dead, but let's talk about the tragedy of the living. Like what are we left with when someone dies?
Yeah.
And I sincerely believe is that we don't face the past. It will haunt us.
Yeah.
That is then the ghost.
Yeah.
And so I realizing that my family was not going to give me what I needed to do what I needed to do to take care of me. I was done pointing the finger at them. I pointed the finger at me and I said, Susan, what do you need to do to have resolve and closure for you? And
Mhm.
it happened to be a one woman show in a memoir.
I know. I love it though. I mean, hey, that's awesome. And like I said, still quite the journey to go on to make it all happen. So, and now, how old were you when you had your child?
I see this 2020, so I guess I was 35.
Okay, yeah, I had my last one at 35. I have three, so but yes, oh, that's awesome. I know. I know. I have that big old gap too, and it's funny because my husband he would even like to have another one. And I'm like, I'm about to be 38, and I always said that 35 was like my cutoff. So,
Yeah.
and I trust God. If it was meant to be, I would let it, I'd make the best of it. I'd trust in the process. But if it's my choice, like I don't know, I think I'm good.
I'm good. Talk to my pelvic floor when I do a jumping
Yes.
jack.
Yeah,
I'm
right.
good.
Yeah, it's because as you get older too, you have more complications and or possibilities for it. I would believe that I know everyone's different. I know someone here recently who had a baby at was she 46 years old? Like,
Oh
who I know.
no.
Thank
A
you.
natural birth?
Yeah, and that's
Oh
like her like
no.
what, seventh child or something like yeah. But God bless them. Like I said, that's the thing. Everyone's journey is different, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's no shame in it. Whatever you're meant for, whatever makes you happy, that is so important, I think. And I love that despite your generational like conditioning and programming of what you were taught, of pushing and suppressing that, not talking about things like that. It's so awesome to see more people breaking that cycle and realizing
Yeah.
like we do have to live for ourselves. Like, we don't
Yeah.
have to let that dictate who we are or where we go. We have to figure out what we need for our own healing
Yeah.
so that we can move forward and get the closure we need. Because, I mean, your mom passing at that age, as a teenager, as a girl, we need our moms. And so when you get deprived of having that experience, like for me, I didn't have my dad growing up. And I felt like that was a crucial thing, like, as far as my development with attracting men. I never had that role model. Therefore, I got into horrible situations where I never had confidence. I didn't have that understanding of how a man should treat a woman. And it took me a long time. And that's another journey in itself for me because my dad, after 19 years of being completely non-existent, has like resurfaced back in my life, and I'm still working to process that. So that's a
Mm,
story in itself that I'm, going to share. But I'm grateful for the woman I am today, and how I've been
right.
very open to receiving that and being very positive while still getting out how I felt. You
Right.
know,
Right.
so I think that's, like I said, it's so cool to see how we grow, how we learn, how we evolve, and can shift things around for our lives. And then you took that chance on yourself, and gosh, look
I
at
mean,
you.
I got to feed a part of me that I think nothing else could fulfill,
Yeah,
right? Like, and I knew I was in my orbit on stage.
yeah.
And I think I had worked in a Zambian refugee camp when I was in college. It was this full circle moment because my parents were in a refugee camp when they escaped Vietnam. And I remember I was talking to this Zambian Rastafarian, and he was just like, Susan, like, only you know, because I was in love with this guy who was never going to love me back. Okay. But I was like so desperately in love. And he was just, and I was looking for advice, and he was like, well, only you know how you feel when you go to bed at night. So you need to do what will honor you most, right? Like, I think it's just like everyone knows what their truth is and what their needs are and what their calling is. Even if they try to dismiss it, right? Like, even if you try to squelch it, even if you try to like be like, la, 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 that is crazy. Like, only you will know that disappointment and that sadness, right? And that unfulfillment. Only you will.
Yeah.
And so it's the question is, well, what is your truth? And what do you want to do to pursue that, you know? And I think for me, like the turning point with my husband was when I was like, I really know I must do this. You know, I'm an ENFJ. I'm very intuitive. And I was like, this feels like I must now. So if you don't want to do this with me, it's okay. We don't have kids. It is okay. And then 2 weeks later, he was like, okay, I'm with you. And that was 2018. So now 7 years ago.
Wow.
And it's like my memoir last year was Book of the Year for NPR, Elle Magazine, and Smithsonian. You know, like I have reached thousands of readers and thousands of people with my one woman show. I'm a storyteller on intergenerational healing with humor. I get to be completely me on the stage, and and I feel the value from that. I feel the love from that. I feel the fulfillment from that. I get paid to do it,
Heck yeah.
you know, but I gotta tell you, in 2018, when I started to make that pivot, I was terrified, did not know how. And if I look back in the last 7 years, there have been bumps in the road.
Oh.
And there have been huge wins. Like the January, February edition of Seattle Magazine, I'm one of Seattle's most influential people.
Oh, congrats. That's
You know what I mean? And it
awesome.
was,
Yeah.
but that I've also gone on this other journey just
Yeah.
around achievement and worthiness. And realizing I'm like, okay, because you know, I'll be real with you, Mary. Like, there are times when I'm like, I'm numb to all this, you know, like I'm like, it's very fulfilling. I'm doing what I want. I'm walking the path I've always wanted to. I feel like I can tell my kid do what you want in life because I did. Right? He's 4 now, and I can confidently say I did what I wanted. And then there are times when I'm like unfulfilled, right? Like where I'm like, what's enough? And so I've been doing a lot of internal personal growth work in the last 6 months, and that's been really great. And, you know, wonderful to be on a magazine cover. But at the same time, it's like, that's actually really not important to me.
Mm-hmm.
Inner peace is important to me. Balance with family life is important to me. My physical health, my mental, emotional, spiritual health, very important to me, you know, because I've been paying the tax when I've been burning the candle at the other end, where I've been like working really hard, making sure I don't fail. And it's like, okay, Susan, we're fine now. You didn't fail. Actually, you did fine.
Yeah.
So how can I relish and enjoy this journey? You know what I mean? Instead of like being so anxious and so stressed that I get really, really sick.
Yeah.
And so I'm coming out of a sick period and I'm just like, whoa, thank you, universe, for helping me redirect for me to get clarity on my values. Because if I keep adhering to the values of my father, yeah, I am not going to be happy because I decided to become an artist, which doesn't, I mean, it makes some money, but not that much, you know, or the odds are stacked against you. It doesn't matter how many times you show up for work, unlike a corporate job, right? Like there's risk there. And that was the thing my dad didn't want for me. He wanted stability for me because he was a refugee. And now I'm like, actually, we're all fine now. We're okay. And I am going to follow my passion, a very American concept. And I'm going to do it because this is what all your sacrifice, all of that, I stand on your shoulders. It actually allows me to do this now. Right? And to tell our stories with dignity. What is it like to grow up in a nail salon? What are the Vietnamese people saying behind your back? Guess what? They're not talking about you. They're talking about themselves because they're whole humans.
Yeah.
And I wanted to show that world of sassiness and courage, of complexity, of how my mother is an anti-hero. I wanted to show you all of that because we have been marginalized for so long. And it is because I am privileged because of my parents' sacrifice, because I have gone to these schools, because I have networked my way into this opportunity right now, I get to do it. And hell yeah, I'm going to do it.
Hell yeah. I love it. That is amazing. Susan, you are amazing. And I am so happy for you. And I just can't wait to see where this takes you. I'm privileged to have someone like you on my show. And I'm on this journey myself of really discovering myself for the first time. I've been a mom since I was 20 and I sacrificed so much. I've always worked so hard, and it's wonderful to be in a place where I can go after my dreams, believe in myself now, and know that I'm worthy, and helping other moms to find that, even no matter how busy you are, because that's what I'm a boss at. I can help you find the time to make things happen, because it is all about taking baby steps. But I love your perspective, because for me, that's one thing I was actually talking about on my webinar recently, was about what does success mean? What does it look like for you? Because so many people would just assume success means being on stage or being famous and rich and things like that. But really, ultimately, like for me personally, means that I'm in a place with my family where we get to go on vacation anytime we want, and we don't have to worry about what the bills are. We get to just be with each other whenever we feel like it. I get to go to events or not have to worry about asking for time off of work and getting penalized because my kid's sick or things like that. Like freedom, like real freedom to me is like that's success. And just figuring out a way to create something that I love that serves others and letting that be the source that allows me to have that kind of lifestyle is so beautiful. And I'm just so passionate about it because I'm making it happen. I never thought it'd be possible for me either, but here I am, and I'm just getting started. So you're such an inspiration, even to me and to my audience, of just like somebody who just kept going and doing it despite what you were taught for so long that you're not allowed to do or who you're not allowed to be. And Lord knows
Yeah.
society loves to try to tell you who you are if you're not willing to do it for yourself. So
Yeah.
I'm just in love with your story and just all that you've accomplished. And I just, you're amazing. Do you have a boy?
I have a boy.
A
Yeah.
boy. Oh,
Yeah.
yes. That is an exciting time, and enjoy it because it does go by so fast. I have two sons and a daughter, and my youngest, he's 3, he's about to be 4 this year. My daughter's 5. It's awesome having a daughter. And then I got that 16-year-old son. I love talking about them, but they are my world. And that's one of the reasons why I love what you're doing. And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing, because I want them to have opportunities. I want them to believe that they're allowed to dream and to chase after what they want and not be stuck on this hamster wheel of life. You have to do this. You have to go get this job. You have to work and struggle in order to survive. I don't ever want that for my kids. So before we close up here, if somebody, is listening and they're like, oh my God, I want to learn more about Susan, of course, I will share all your stuff in the show notes, but tell us a little bit about the best way that they can find you and get connected with you.
On Instagram at Susan Lieu, Lieu. And then on my website, susanlieu.me, you can sign up for my newsletter and also watch 140 Pounds and stream it too. Yeah.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. And I also always ask and open the floor. Is there any final piece of advice that you would love to share with the listeners?
Yeah. Oh, wait. And I also want to add that I also have my own podcast called Model Minority Moms. So it's
Oh,
about the pressure of being everything for everyone else but yourself. So I have 2 other co-hosts. It's a super fun podcast. But in terms of advice, the sobering fact is my mom died when she was 38, right? She was 38 years old and had 4 kids. And you don't ever think you're going to die when you're 38. You think maybe I'm going to be 80, 100, surrounded by my loved ones, and my body's fully functioning until I die. Like that's what we hope our death is going to be like. But the fact is no matter if you're rich or poor, you have a due date and you are going to die. And it might not be the perfect death that you've always imagined. And so my big advice to people is to live like you're mortal. Because you are mortal.
yeah.
But we live like we're immortal. We live like, oh, I'm going to have that conversation, that hard conversation with someone later. Oh,
Yeah.
that thing I actually really want to do, I'll do it later. Or somehow retirement is going to happen at this really great time and my body's going to be really great and I'm going to have a whole bunch of money. Like it's
Yeah.
always this world of later.
Yeah.
And so I just want to say, live like you're mortal and do it now. Like, what is that small 2-degree turn, that small action, that small 2-minute experiment that you can take today to put your needs out there, your secret desire out there to a friend, start to verbalize what you want more, and start to see what that comes back for you, right? It's just an experiment. Stay curious, but also live like you're mortal and see what transpires from there.
That is such a beautiful advice, and what a powerful perspective, because you're right. We do take life for granted, don't we? And then one day you're here and one day you're not. And it's even a matter of even your family. Like, make sure they always know you love them, because you never know. Nothing's promised tomorrow. And it's a big part of what I also love to encourage people. It's like, there's no time like now to get started.
That's
So
right.
do it.
That's right.
Susan, I want to thank you again so much for being part of this show. It has been a true honor to meet you.
My pleasure.
What an incredible person Susan is. Here are the key takeaways from today's episode. You're not obligated to keep silent about your pain. Just because something hasn't been talked about in your family doesn't mean you have to carry it alone. You have the right to speak up, process your grief, and honor your truth. You have the power to break generational patterns. Even if your culture or upbringing taught you to stay quiet or hide your emotions, you can choose differently. Healing starts when you decide. The cycle stops with you. You don't need permission to follow your truth. Others might not understand your journey, and that's okay. You're allowed to seek answers, ask hard questions, and follow your intuition, even when it feels uncomfortable. You can turn your pain into purpose. The things we've been through weren't meaningless. When you're ready, you can use your experiences to create something powerful, whether that's a story, a business, or a new way of living. You are capable of taking small steps toward your dreams. You don't have to have it all figured out. What matters is moving forward, even one tiny step at a time. Progress is still progress. You are allowed to live urgently and intentionally. Life is too precious to live on autopilot or put your dreams on hold. You deserve to live for you, not just for everyone else. You don't have to wait until you're healed to begin. Healing is a process, not a destination. You can start sharing, creating, loving, and dreaming right now, even in the middle of the mess. Be sure to grab your copy of Susan's book called The Manicurist Daughter, a memoir, today. I have also included all her links in the show notes so you can connect and follow her on her journey. If you are a mom juggling all the things mom life and business, then be sure to follow me on Eventbrite and sign up for the next Mama Means Business monthly networking event to meet new like-minded moms on the same journey and gain new friendships, grow your network, and get the real support you deserve so you don't have to navigate it all alone. Let us moms rise and thrive together. I hope to see you there. If you enjoyed this episode, it would mean so much if you would share this with a fellow mom and leave us a review. It truly helps us so much, and it takes only a few moments of your time. Thank you all for tuning in. Until next time, much love.